best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz. Hey, medical costs. Well, you know, if you've listened to this show for any length of time, a common topic, and for good reason, you're spending more and more of your hard-earned dollars on insurance, on copays, on deductibles, and all of that good stuff. And you wonder what you're getting for your money, whether you're getting less, and what's in store for the future. And we're really happy to have with us today Craig Lack, #1 best-selling author. I'll be telling you more about that. Also, it's come up with, for companies, a really unique way of saving a fortune on health insurance bills. And it's been written up all over the place, many different magazines, Fast Company, Inc., and others. Craig, we are really thrilled to have you on.
Hey, great to be here. Looking forward to it, Kerry.
Hey, so obviously you see the problem here. It's not getting better. And finally, you said, rather than just complaining, which is what 3/4 of the people out there do, you had to come up with a solution, right?
Correct. We have to be pragmatic. I mean, the law was 2,800 pages when they passed it. It's over 28,000 pages today.
Right, with all the regulations, and they're adding more, and executive orders, and then there's the regulations, there's the law, and then there's reality, the way that it really plays out, and what exactly is going on there in the healthcare marketplace. I'm talking about in your doctor's office, in the hospital, in the nursing home. What's going on here, and how do we deal with it?
Well, I'm not sure we have enough time to cover all those areas, but the reality of the marketplace for healthcare in the United States is we've got about a $3 trillion, quote unquote, healthcare system. It's really a medical sickness treatment system. So we've created this program whereby we pay the supply chain. Think of the supply chain as doctors and hospitals. We only pay them to treat sickness, eliminate disease, or mask symptoms. And what's funny is other parts of the government, namely the Centers for Disease Control, have stated in numerous reports that more than 50% of all claims are preventable because they're influenced by lifestyle behaviors and choices. But we have a system that only pays the supply chain to treat sickness. So those are completely diametrically opposed. And so we have the Affordable Care Act.
Right. And
right.
The Affordable Care Act, hardly affordable, and making it harder to get care, right?
Depending on your situation, right? So the way the law was written was really to initially influence and try to change the delivery of insurance, health insurance specifically in the United States. And so there are really 4 segments the way it is today. There's the individual market, there's the small company, less than 50 employees, and then there's this in between 50 to 100, and then 100 plus. So think of it in terms of numbers. 98% of all companies by number of companies in the United States are less than 100 employees. 2% are 100 employees or above by the number. But by the number of insured employees, that 2% is 70% of the commercial marketplace. So we have a law that was intended to impact actually a small number of businesses, if you will, but a much larger number of individuals. And so if you previously were uninsured as a single individual because you had pre-existing conditions, you're thinking this is great because now health insurance is mandatory and required by the law. Much of the law, though, is illusory, right? These impacts on the business side weren't necessarily relevant because everybody was already, for the most part, in larger companies, already insured.
Right. Yeah, sure. So everyone was insured. So, how's it affect the larger companies?
Yeah, so larger companies are really probably going to have pretty stable rates. The majority of the law is impacting the single employees and the small companies under 50. And because of those changes, we heard about, hey, you could keep your doctor, you can keep your health plan. We all know how that ended, right? So what the reality has been of the law is that because they required these new policies within a contract, within a health insurance contract, it required all of the policies to be changed if you were going to sign up on these new quote-unquote Obamacare programs. So what we have is millions of individuals had to cancel their coverage and then sign up for a new Obamacare compliant policy. The same thing is going on in the small group market. Now, it could be a coincidence, but this year there were going to be news stories of tens of millions of people, quote unquote, losing their small group coverage because all of those policies were going to renew from pre-Obamacare plans to post-Obamacare plans. So as they became compliant, they were going to have to terminate their old policies. Well, it happens to be an election year this year, and about a month ago, that law was deferred for another year. So you're not going to see those stories coming out before the election this year. They kick the can down the road another year. So small companies, less than 50 employees, will be able to keep their prior coverage for 12 more months.
How convenient.
Yes. I mean, it could be a coincidence.
Yeah, I'm sure. I believe in coincidences.
Probably not.
Yeah. So those people, have been spared for another year, but a year from now, it's going to hit the fan, and that's tens of millions of people, right?
Yeah. What you're going to experience is, for people who are receiving their renewals, what they're getting this year as usually a company has an annual anniversary. So as they're getting their anniversary renewal rates, they're going to be given the option. You can keep they have a cute term for it. They call it grandmothered. Mm-hmm. You can keep your grandmothered plans, which is keep what you currently have as your small group health insurance plan, or you can go to the new Affordable Care Act plans. And what you're going to see is a dramatic increase in the costs for the Affordable Care Act policies with, in most cases, depending on your location, but in many states, smaller networks of hospitals and physicians to select from, and significantly higher out-of-pocket costs if you happen to have a bad year and you're sick. Mm-hmm. So yes, you're going to be paying more for less coverage if you're sick. So ultimately, the way for your listeners to save money in the healthcare system in the United States today is to stay healthy and stay out of the system.
Yeah. And, and the best way to do that, which if you've listened to the show, it is by changing your lifestyle, changing what you eat, getting exercise. If you smoke or engage in other unhealthy forms of behavior, is to stop it, right? I mean, we all know this, right?
I like to explain the way we've indoctrinated citizens in the United States in the last 25 years that I've been consulting businesses on healthcare. We basically created a credit card. It's your healthcare ID card, and and we tell people to go to the buffet line and consume as much as they want. And we've taught people to be conditioned to think that the best health insurance is the one where I can eat everything that I want, and it costs me little or nothing. Mm-hmm. And the consequence of that is, now that we've come full cycle in 25 years and they realize, hey, human beings don't spend other people's money the way they spend their own money. So this system that we created is unsustainable. And so what we need to do is get people to understand that what they do, the choices they make, influences costs, and costs influence pricing. And if we want to make this sustainable over time, we have to try and reward people to try and stay healthy. We have to try and create incentives for people to want to pay attention to their health, because now they're going to have skin in the game. They're going to have to learn to become consumers of healthcare. Right? I mean, we're all great at finding a cell phone plan and a big screen TV, but the average consumer spends 15 minutes at their company a year in deciding which health plan to pick because of how we've defined it for them over the last 25 years. So there's a lot of change coming for people.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of basic economics. What you're talking about here, Craig, is you give people incentives and you will encourage behavior, and, carrot stick, give them disincentives. You will discourage certain behaviors in the majority of people, or a certain percentage of the population, put it that way. Right?
Right, right. And here's an interesting note that a lot of your listeners may not understand or know. In any particular company, approximately 1% of the covered, the insured members, incurs anywhere from 20 to 30% of the claims. 5% of employees incur 50 to 60% of the claims. And the old Pareto principle, about 20% incur 80% of the claims. So for most employers, they dramatically overinsure the majority of the employees because they use little or no health care. And so because the system has been incentivized to treat sickness and eliminate disease, we have this really, really top-weighted experience where only a few people are incurring most of the claims. Think about this as an idea. We could cover most of the United States, the majority of citizens, with just a $50,000 or $100,000 policy. That's all they need because they don't use much health care. The only thing that's going to happen to them is an accident.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, when you think about this whole process, it really has to do with we need to change the incentives from, if you had a magic wand, Kerry, and you could change it tomorrow and say, hey, we're going to pay doctors and hospitals to keep people healthy. Since most of the claims are preventable, let's keep people healthy and pay them to do it that way. Instead of saying, wait till you get sick, hope you catch it early, and then try to manage the disease when it was preventable in the first place. Think about that. We could have dramatic changes overnight. Now, I will tell you, built inside those 28,000 pages of the Affordable Care Act are policies now to start paying doctors and hospitals based on the quality of the outcomes of their treatments, based on not having preventable readmissions in a hospital. And so we'll reward you if you actually take care of the patient after they walk out the door. What a concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So paying for what
but
you get. But
imagine how long it takes to change the way a physician treats.
Oh, yeah.
Even their own internal best practices, according to physician studies, takes 14 to 17 years for a physician group to change the way they practice. But let me tell you, if you change the way they're compensated, it'll happen a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have to change the incentives.
Sure. So, and this is something that really isn't understood about Obamacare, is it?
No, I mean, pretty much everybody views things from their own perspective and their own position. And the majority of people, I write about it in my book. It's called The Law of First Knowledge. People rarely learn or change their ideas or thoughts about something after they've learned about it the first time. So what happens is people who like CNN tend to only watch CNN, and people who like Fox only watch Fox. And so people don't want to take the perspective of, how can I look at this and consider other facets and other angles and other perspectives, and maybe I can have a different viewpoint. So the Affordable Care Act is either, it's the devil incarnate, or it's wonderful. And the reality is, it's somewhere in between. And so it really just depends on your perspective. There are many useful tools inside the Affordable Care Act for companies to use to help start to control their costs and to reduce them. On the other hand, there are lots of, government interventions inside the Affordable Care Act, which, is a whole different conversation.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and controversial and,
sure.
And all that.
Yeah. I mean, they're making it up as they go. This thing will be 100,000 pages when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
For those of you who are thinking, hope against hope, this might be repealed. Never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it like a construction site. The Affordable Care Act is 4.5 years old now, so it's the foundation. It's been poured. It's not going to change. People like guaranteed issue. People like unlimited maximum benefits. People like kids can stay on their plan. We got the Peter Pan thing in America, right? You never have to grow up. So kids can stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26. Those things are not going away. Prevention is covered at 100%. Great. Foundation's poured. What we see are these manifestations, these delays, these 40-plus changes in the law by fiat. Those are the rest of the building. That's going to constantly evolve and change. So I like to call it this. We had the revolution. It was the Affordable Care Act, and they got it passed, and it's done. Now, because it's a $3 trillion healthcare system, it's 20% of our GDP. These people are very powerful, and they have a very strong lobby. Now we're going to have an evolutionary change.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of evolving to do. And up next, we're going to talk more about how this thing has to evolve, because right now it's completely unmanageable and there's so much failure surrounding it, the least of which is the website on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And in case you just joined us, we've got best-selling author Craig Lack with us, and a real innovator in the healthcare system. He's a nationally recognized expert and creator of the performance-based healthcare plans, which probably is the way that we're going to have to go. So, Craig, there's so many gaping holes and so many problems with this thing. I mean, why me as a 57-year-old male do I need to be covered for pregnancy and mammograms and all this other stuff? It's kind of insane, isn't it?
It is. And I think in the process of them trying to change the insurance system for individuals and small companies, they painted this with a very broad brushstroke, right? Mm-hmm. So things like that may change in time. Probably will, but that's so far down the road of priorities for them that, people are going to have to deal with that excess coverage. I mean, it's the nature of health insurance in the United States. We have massively overinsured everybody. I mean, if we wanted to use math, right? So we had a big chunk of the population in the United States had 0% coverage, while the majority of people working in corporations had coverage that on an actuarial basis, that's what the government Affordable Care Act uses. Most people have had, you've heard about the bronze plan. That's called a 60% plan.
Right.
And the silver is 70%, and the gold is 80%, and the platinum is 90%. Well, most people working in the United States have been used to, and it depends on what state you're in, but you're in Florida, so they probably have been used to 85 to 95% actuarial value coverage. Mm-hmm. Very rich benefits, which means small out-of-pocket costs when you access care.
Right.
And so now the government said, hey, we're going to step in and we're going to take 15% of the country from 0 to at least 60% coverage. And in order to do that, we have to basically reduce people's 85 and 95% plans. So if I could explain numerically, that's what's happening. People are going to have less coverage in the sense that if they get sick, it's going to cost them more.
Right. And yeah, so not fun. But again, back to, so the answer is stay out of the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. Pay as small a premium as you want if you're able to do that. And stay healthy, because it's cheaper to buy vegetables than it is to, wait until you go to the docs and they say, hey, gosh, if you'd have seen me 5 years ago, I might have told you to exercise or change your diet. But now I'm going to give you high blood pressure and high cholesterol meds, and you'll probably be on those for the rest of your life. Well, okay, that's not a great solution. So people need to, and it's going to take time, people need to understand the connection between their personal responsibility and the choices they make and the costs for preventive health care. Yeah. And ounce of prevention is obviously worth a pound of cure.
Yeah. Isn't that funny how those sayings still work today?
Yeah, truer than ever. I mean,
yeah, it's worth $100 of cure.
Yeah. It's crazy that how much easier, you never smoke. That cuts your chances of getting lung cancer by how much?
Yeah.
But by the time people realize it, too late. And yeah.
But isn't it funny? I mean, how many guys do you know? You got friends who, let's look at some of these statistics. The American Heart Association says 60% of men, first signs of heart disease, heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Not everybody survives. But I've had friends that did survive, and suddenly they made a decision, and overnight started going to the gym, started changing the way they ate, started drinking less.
Yeah.
So everybody has it within themselves. The question is, they just need to find their why. We just need the right reason why to be motivated to say, I'm going to do it different today.
Yeah, it's really simple. I know myself, I had metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol. High cholesterol is really hard to get rid of no matter what you're doing. But high blood pressure, high blood sugar, really for most people, all you got to do is lose weight. And, I did it. And, it's amazing. It just came down really quick.
Yeah.
In a month. So,
yeah,
it can be done. So as far as corporations go, so your plan here really can save bigger corporations millions, smaller corporations tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Performance-based health plans is kind of like a moniker for comparing and contrasting the way people heretofore have purchased their insurance at their work, where they kind of have always thought, well, I write a check to an insurance company and it's their job, right? I'm done. I set my costs. It's like a financing cost. So I prepay my financing and then it's up to the carrier, right? And so now, after having 15 years of rate increases, right? We call it the Groundhog Day renewal process, right? You meet, you get the shock, and then, if you're lucky, the broker negotiates it down to a lower rate, and then best practices in bigger companies is then they show you benchmarks to compare it against and say, see, you got a less bad rate increase than the national average. And that's been going on for a decade, and it's tired. That business model is dead in the post-Affordable Care Act world. So now we have to create a performance-based approach. So the Affordable Care Act inside there says, hey guys, health insurance in the United States is unlike any other consumer insurance product because we've made it a B2B sale. And the Affordable Care Act is saying, we think it's going to be more sustainable as a B2C, business to consumer. So think about this for a second. And you were an employer and you paid premiums for your employees. So you understand what I'm talking about. You wrote a check, but then you charge everybody the same premium. So where's the opportunity in the old way of doing it for me to get a good driver discount, if you will?
No incentives. Right? Because zero.
Not everybody uses the insurance, but everybody gets charged exactly the same. Well, that doesn't exist in any other consumer insurance product. If you're a good driver, you get a discount. If you don't smoke, you get a discount on life insurance. But on health insurance, no, everybody pays the same. Yeah. It wasn't working. So inside the Obamacare, there are strategies where it says, hey, you can charge 20, 30, even up to 50% premium difference based on people's participation or activities or the outcomes of different tests that they may take, like a blood screening. And so in so doing, they're attempting to create motivations to say, hey, everybody, there's a consequence to not improving. There's a consequence to not participating or doing anything, right? You want to be a couch potato, you're going to have to pay for the privilege because you represent an inordinate amount of risk, and we're now allowed to, create a different investment on your part for choosing to do nothing. Mm-hmm. And so when you start to connect the dots there and you say, well, wait, if 20% of my workforce incurs 80% of my claims, if I might be able to align the interests and the motivations and incentives for those employees to want to do something different, I could dramatically reduce the claims. If I reduce the claims, that impacts my next year's rates. And so when you start to connect the dots there, it's possible for an organization, and this has been done for years and years, and all the major Fortune 1000 companies, they've had flat rate increases for a decade. Some of them, last 5 years. They already figured it out, and a lot of what the Affordable Care Act did in these areas was just emulate what's already been published by all these organizations. I have 20 books on my desk published by large companies saying, here's what we do, here's how we've done it.
Yeah.
So people just have to start performing.
Can you fire these people if they don't perform? Is that
no? Because
then you're firing them because you're discriminating against their health, right?
No, you don't want to,
Yeah, you can't
remember, the discrimination is such a weird word. You can't discriminate against somebody, but you can discriminate in favor of them.
Right.
So if you're going to use the discrimination as an adjective, then we have to say, okay, well, if you want a good driver discount and you do these activities or you participate in this test or you go get your preventive care and we reward you, then we're benefiting you.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, hey, I'm not doing nothing, okay, that's your choice. Equally available to everybody, but now you're going to have to pay more for the privilege of doing nothing.
Right.
So that's just one concept that can be used. Another popular one you see in the news all the time: health savings account, HSAs.
Sure.
Think of it as like an IRA, except it's for medical.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got a lot of those are the fastest growing plans in the United States, where companies are making decisions along with their employees to say, we have pretty good claims experience. We're a young group, right? When our average age isn't 50, it's 32, right? And so what they do is they say, look, instead of overpaying premiums to a third-party insurance company where our good claims experience goes to the insurance company's bottom line, we're going to buy a program that has a little higher deductible but a lot lower premium, and we're going to take that premium savings and we're going to invest it in our employees' accounts called health savings accounts. So it's their money, it's their balance. Yeah, right. HSAs. So they save money, and in a very short order, before you know it, you've got more money in there than your deductible.
Hey.
So within a few years, you have a 100% health plan.
Craig, do you have some more time that we can spend talking about these options?
Sure.
Okay, so up next, let's talk about the ways that corporations are incentivizing employees to improve their health and sharing in the savings on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And we've got Craig Lack with us on the show today talking about creative ways to save money on health insurance and health care, among them health savings accounts or HSAs. And I'm sure he's got lots more ways. And Craig, so, obviously the savings can be dramatic because, your health care or your state of your health, which to me starts every morning when I get on that scale, because let's face it, obesity, is the great enemy of good health, but other lifestyle choices as well. Like you said, the studies are in and the actions you take directly affect your health. So what types of savings can you get? Can the company realize with these programs? What types of results can they get?
We've got experience anywhere from 15 to 50% in savings, and it's really a function of your size. It depends on your location, because some states only have 2 carriers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in California; we have 7 or 8, but that's the exception rather than the rule. Many states are around 2 to 4 carriers, and so what you have is a lack of competition, and that's not good for businesses. And so one of the avenues that a lot of companies consider, especially those over a couple hundred employees, is a mechanism they call partially self-funding, where think of buying a medical insurance plan from your Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida as a bundled solution. It's all inclusive, right? You're all in, you write a check, you're done. Well, if you unbundled that solution and broke it out into its components, that would be like being partially self-funded. And many employers, matter of fact, almost 65% of every commercially insured employee in the United States is covered by a partially self-funded plan. So many employers now after the Affordable Care Act are starting to look at options in these states where there's only 2 or 3 competitors on the fully insured side, because suddenly they're becoming aware of this option where maybe I don't need to prepay a bundled solution provider. I can go to a pay as you go. You only pay for the claims you actually incur instead of prepaying it. And so that's a strategy that's become very popular, and there's a lot of opportunities there, again, depending on what your location is in the country.
Right. So, yeah, certain smaller states, they've only got, some of them, I think, even have only one carrier, right? Few states, like Vermont, I think.
Well, it might be a de facto, based on, they have 2, but if one has 85% market share, it's like having one.
Right.
Right next door to you in Georgia, it's similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's one of the problems that Obamacare really didn't address, was giving entree to new carriers, and really, states regulate health insurance.
Can I address that for a second?
Sure thing.
Because it's really misunderstood, and it always made me laugh when politicians would get on there and say, why can't we have interstate insurance? So, as I've explained numerous times, there's an easy way to understand this. So if you go to the doctor in Jacksonville, pick a city, right?
Mm-hmm.
They charge a certain amount of money. Now, if you came out here to Beverly Hills, that doctor would charge a certain amount of money for the same exact procedure. And guess what? Those 2 amounts would be dramatically higher. I picked Beverly Hills because most people understand that. Ooh, that'd be expensive, right?
Right.
So when you're the insurance company in Florida, you're basing your premiums based on the expected claims of people in Florida based on the hospitals and physicians that charge in Florida.
Sure.
So if you took those premiums and then went to Beverly Hills, where the hospitals and the doctors and the lab tests and everything was quite a bit more expensive, you'd quickly find out that your premiums were set at the wrong rate.
Of course.
That's why there isn't interstate insurance sales, because the rates are all based on local charges. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and obviously, if I'm the XYZ insurance company in Florida and I'm going to sell insurance to somebody in Beverly Hills, I've got to adjust my rates accordingly, right? To do that.
You would, but for most of the companies, the rates are already preset. Under 50 lives, all the rates are they're already preset, so you can see them. They're published.
Yeah.
So if we started letting 20-man companies in California buy those cheap premiums from Nebraska, those carriers would be out of business in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, it would require these companies, to obviously contract with you can't just say, it's a simplistic solution that
it makes a great soundbite though on television.
Yeah, it's not quite that simple. I mean,
right? Because it's easy to demonize the insurance companies. Oh gosh, these greedy profiteering companies, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know, because having lived in New York City, all those hospitals, the teaching hospitals, 40% higher than non-teaching hospitals, but quality of care, at least in theory, much higher. And, rates in New York, and you had community rating and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So they had must-issue
still very
policies.
Expensive.
Oh, yes. So,
we have clients in Manhattan, and it's pricey.
Yeah, crazy. So, but the fact is that the insurance companies being regulated at the state level does hinder competition and stops insurance companies from coming in, and mandated coverages, like in New York, you had to cover fertility regardless what the cost, and that definitely drives up the cost of coverage, right?
And guess what? You're making the argument as to why so many companies are exploring partially self-funding as an option, because state premium taxes don't apply. State mandates don't apply. Most of the Obamacare taxes don't apply. And so when you start to look at, I could rent whatever medical network I want. If I want the Blue Cross or the Aetna or the Cigna or the United, I have the choice. And then I can design my plan so it's the same for all of my employees in all 50 states. When you're fully insured, it's never the same because of what you just mentioned. Each state has its own mandates. If you're fully insured, you have to meet the requirements. So every employee has a little bit different coverage in every state. It's inconvenient for large employers.
Yeah.
You want to have one plan, same for everybody.
And then you have excess coverage for people
you
that
still
have
buy
catastrophic.
Insurance. Yep. Yeah, it's the same thing the carriers do with your premiums. You just don't see it because the carriers have a certain amount of opaqueness that they like to maintain.
Mm-hmm.
In California, it's a black box.
Right.
They don't tell you anything. But in a couple of states, they've mandated now some transparency, which is very helpful for your buyer.
Reinsurance, as it's known as in the trade, or in the bookmaking industry, it's called laying off the bets. When the Giants get too much money, New York Giants, when there's too many bets on them, they lay it off to the super bookies, and that's what they do in the insurance industry.
So you can pay a VIG at a wholesale rate when you're partially self-funded versus a retail rate when you're fully insured.
Yep. And on that note, we have to go, but just tell us where we find out more about you, how we learn more about these performance-based plans, because obviously it's the way of the future, and there's great savings to be had.
There is. You can reach out to us at premiumreductionstrategies.com or just go to craigblack.com, and all our links are there. And watch some videos.
And great work here, Craig. And, not everything is bad. Having the patient have skin in the game really is what it's about, because when you have other people, like you said, the credit card or the meal plan, and you just feed it the buffet, and then at the end you hand the check off to somebody else, that is inefficient, and that leads to wastefulness and to poor outcomes as well. So there is progress being made on that front. I think it could have been done much better than the plan that we wound up with, for sure. And that's unfortunate, but we're stuck with what we're stuck with. So, hey, by the way, you'll find Craig's link up on the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com's website. Make sure you sign up for our free newsletter, and make sure you check out the free webinar that we're going to have on September 24th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. A lot of good information will be had there. Craig, we will definitely have you back on again, because like you said, this is evolving and a lot more changes are going to be realized in the future. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Kerry. We'd look forward to the opportunity to educate your listeners.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.